You share that confidence, of course, that he can get it through, but he's got to really face up to extensive lobbying by Israel and indeed by Saudi Arabia here as well, who are vehemently against this.
Well, it seems to me that it's high time that that the Saudis and the Israelis learned, if you like, that United States makes its foreign policy decisions in the best interests of the United States. And I think that certainly Israel's attempt, in particular Mr. Netanyahu's attempts to influence American policy, have not been very well received in the United States.
Peter, in your view, is this a good deal?
Oh, yes. I mean, I think, this, first and foremost, this brings Iran squarely back into the international community, from which it has been estranged, essentially, since the early 1980s. And it also, in the early years of the Islamic Republic, all sorts of stupid things were said and done. But I mean, after all, we're now 35, 36 years on, and it's time that these fences were mended and that Iran, took its place like anywhere else. I mean, if you put it this way, I'm sure the United States does not particularly like the Russian Federation, but it does have diplomatic relations with it. And it is very much the same kind of thing. And also, if the United States wants to exert any influence or to sort of bring things in Syria to a sort of more or less decent conclusion, it will certainly need Iran to do that.
The other thing, I mean, you just alluded to Syria. I mean, this does change the geopolitical balance very, very radically in the Middle East, does it not?
Yes, I think it does. I mean, first of all, I mean, there is Syria, as we've just said, but there's also, I think that, this rather sort of, how can I put it, covert nature of the relationship between the United States and Iran versus Islamic State can now come out into the open much more, and that this, really essential cooperation can carry on without any sort of subterfuges. Iran has been absolutely vital against the struggle against Islamic State over the past few months.
So, what about the whole Sunni-Shia dynamic, these two strands of Islam, with the Sunnis in the shape of IS, if you can call them Sunnis actually, vehemently against the Shia? Does this make the tensions between the two sects more aggressive?
Well, I mean, this is, sectarianism is something which you pull out of the cupboard from time to time when you feel that this is useful. And generally speaking, it is Sunni anti-Shiism that has been so very prominent over the past 20 or so years. I mean, you don't have a similar how can I put it, Shi'i anti-Sunnism. It doesn't work that way. Whereas if you see what certain regimes like the Saudis, even the Bahrainis, say about the Shi'is, it's extremely intolerant and so on. I mean, not to mention Islamic State, of course. But you don't get this anti-Sunni vituperative stuff from the Iranians, or indeed from any other Shi'is.
Peter, what about the world looking at this as a massive consumer market as well as it opens up?
Oh, yes. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I mean, all these sort of billions stacked away in banks which can now be released. The fact that, there is a fair amount of money swilling around in Iran, that, of course, oil dealers and oil companies and so forth have been apparently besieging the Iranian oil ministry for several months. This is all going to be quite a bonanza. Whether it's going to be a bonanza for the Iranian people, I'm not so sure, but it certainly will be for outside interest. But I think that this will create jobs and opportunities for people in Iran, where you have this usual Middle Eastern demographic that 60% of the population are under 35, that there is a lot of youth unemployment, etc., just as you have in Egypt and other Middle Eastern countries. But the good thing about Iran is it has a much more strongly based economy than any of these countries, with a sort of fairly solid industry and a quite decent infrastructure.
Very quickly, I think there's something like $120 billion at the moment frozen in Western bank accounts. Some say the figure is double that from money from the Shah's era as well. How does that find its way back into Iran? How is it spent? Very, very quickly.
Really very difficult to say. I think that what really needs investment is the Iranian oil industry, which is why they went for nuclear energy in the first place, because the oil industry has had no serious investment for the last 40 years.